Hello friends and all you Ghostface killers out there, my name is EJ Marino and welcome to my channel. In this video we are launching a brand new series, 25th Anniversary Retro Reviews. Yes, I am diving into movies that came out in the year 2000 and mean oh so much to me. The first movie up on our list, we are talking about Scream 3. Yes, the year 2000 was 25 years ago. If I'm going to recall my history as a movie lover, this is one of the most important years for me. I was starting to really come into my own as a movie lover, as someone who just wanted to find something that entertained them. I was being, dragged to the movies by my mom for years, but this was the first year that I was really starting to come into my own and really start to have opinions, start having wants and needs from my movie loving experiences. Well, I happened to be a horror fan at this time, really a budding horror fan. I was pretty young at this moment, but I already knew I loved the Scream franchise. If you were around in the 90s or early 2000s, Ghostface, Scream, this whole franchise was such a big deal. We have the parody movies like Scary Movie. We just have that Ghostface mask still being sold in Halloween stores to this year. Like, it is wild the kind of the impact Scream had. So when Scream 3 came out in 2000, I knew I needed to see this movie. I love Scream. I love everything that this franchise has to offer from a horror standpoint, from a meta commentary, and as well as a longtime slasher fan. So walking into this review, I'm so excited to dive into Scream 3. Though I will say, this is maybe people's least favorite Scream movie. I'm in the camp that there is no bad Scream movies, but I will say this is the one that had the most mixed reception upon release. I do think there is some critical reevaluation that went around it because of the Me Too aspect of this. This movie definitely deals with how horrible, producers can be, all while being produced by Weinstein. The fact that this movie is making fun of, if not calling out, the horrible corruption that a production, a producer, a man in charge of a studio can do, and the power and the grossness that is there. Wow, that was it. They made this movie under Weinstein, and he just didn't see himself as this person, so just kind of ignored the obvious, wow, this movie is making fun of you. Yeah, I cannot wait to dive into all of what Scream 3 has to offer. This, look, no movie in my Scream ranking fluctuates more than Scream 3. It's often one of my favorites. Sometimes it was one of my least favorites. Right now, I'm somewhere in the favorites department, and I cannot wait to do a in defense of Scream 3 and all of the goodness that comes from this movie.
Anyone, including the main character, can die. This means you, Sid. I'm sorry. It's the final chapter. It could be fucking Reservoir Dogs by the time this thing is through.
Scream 3 was the conclusion of the first set of Scream movies. This movie was a big deal when it came out. It's a $40 million budget, and it made about 160 something at the box office that year. That is pretty impressive, especially when the movie is infamously butchered because of post-Columbine, where we didn't want as much violence in our cinema because we thought the violence in cinema was the violence that we were seeing in real life, and my goodness, have we never learned lessons there anyways? So yeah, Scream 3 was coming out at a weird time. It was concluding a long-running franchise that was really beloved. Scream 1 and Scream 2 are some of the most beloved slasher films ever, so Scream 3 had to come into this, but it was needed. It wasn't like they could just skip it. A trilogy is an important part of the history of horror movies. It's the history of, film in general. A trilogy is such a big deal, so we needed to conclude the story. The story still had stuff to be told. I think, Scream 2 ends in a decent way, but I think Scream 3 showed that Sidney had a lot more to deal with internally. We're seeing the trauma that she went through from two events, so instantly Sidney is isolated in this film. Her father makes a comment of well, no one knows you're alive, and she goes, well, they can't kill what they don't know is around.
Psychos can't kill what they can't find.
So she's just isolating herself, but that is a logical explanation of where Sidney would be at this point. She went through one, slaughter at a college, and then, her hometown while she was growing up as a teen.
PTSD, trauma, post-traumatic stress, female trauma, family trauma.
This woman needed this moment. So I love what this story has to tell. We're still needing to see where Sidney is, where, Dewey, where Gail is. Our characters aren't done yet. We left them off at a really important part with Scream 2, but where were they going to be in Scream 3? It's the power of 3, though. I love a good set of trilogy. We have 3 great characters here whose stories needed to be told more. Do I love every avenue that that they took them. No, I don't love that we broke up Gale and Dewey in between movies. I don't love that Dewey is just kind of a Hollywood hang-arounder, as they call him in this movie. I think there's some aspects of the characters that I don't love, but I still think this is needed. I still think the story told what it needed to do in its sense of a trilogy legacy. A trilogy is important, and it was hard for them to nail it. Wes Craven was coming into this very much wanting to tell the story, but, we have Kevin Williamson, who is maybe not attached to this movie as he would be with Scream 1 and Scream 2, so there is that little bit of beef there, which I have allegedly heard that Kevin Williamson is not a fan of this movie, which is why Patrick Dempsey is not coming back for the new Scream movie. It's going to be Joel McHale, so we're not connecting to this. It seems like we're not ignoring any Scream movie, but we're also picking and choosing which plot points we want. Fair, I guess. Speaking of trilogies, this is also a rare good third movie in a franchise. Even if you do not love Scream 3, comparing it to Child's Play 3, Friday the 13th Part 3, Halloween 3, you see where I'm going, Leprechaun 3. If you get to a third movie in a horror franchise, Jaws 3D, girl. It's rare when you get a third movie like this that is good, that is compelling, that still has story to tell. Yes, again, we're kind of putting our characters in weird spots to be able to tell this story, but it was still needed to be there. It wasn't like we were just rehashing. We weren't just like digging up dead bodies, be like, oh, and Jason is back, but now he has a hockey mask. It wasn't one of those kind of stories. It was definitely this is where our characters would have progressed. I love that we've done that continuously. We keep revisiting the Woodsboro clan. We keep going, okay, what are they doing? What's going on here? As they go through different points in their life. I think Scream 3 was a very important part of a lot of their lives. They're becoming adults. They're trying to find their way in professional lives. They're trying to, process the trauma that was there when they were children.
Trauma. PTSD. Trauma.
I think this is so important, and it makes this the good third movie that it is. Like I said, there is so many infamous cases for third movies. I mean, even going outside of horror, you have The Godfather 3, one of the most hated movies of all time. Like, it's crazy to see a third movie like this work. I think it was impressive. I think it's impressive then. I think it's impressive now that this is as solid as it is. It should not be this good. Yes, Scream has its issues. Scream 3 is definitely not the best of the bunch, but it's still way better than it has any right to be.
I'm sorry things didn't work out on 60 Minutes too, but total entertainment, that's a pretty good fallback.
No, thank you. I'm sorry that things didn't work out with Brad Pitt.
One of the biggest talking points from Scream 3 is what I dubbed Scream Goes Hollywood. We knew in Scream 2 that the Stab franchise was being built. It's a movie within a movie, something that's based off the books that Gale Weathers made that is kind of recounting the Sidney Prescott story. Well, we are way into production in this movie. We are in a full Hollywood setting. I mean, Jay and Silent Bob make a cameo. We are in pure Miramax early 2000s movie making, and I absolutely love it. I think that was such a interesting turn for this. It gets meta. Is it a little too meta? Yeah, there is so many references and Easter eggs and little lines that will be, kind of obvious. So that some of them are very film industry things. A lot of, what was it? The Jenny McCarthy character talking about, is there another script rewrite? Roman, I cannot learn the words. And that is something that they were facing on the set of Scream because they were trying to avoid spoilers and leaks, because this is early internet as well. Leaks were all over Scream 2, so they were trying to avoid it with Scream 3 by constantly changing up the script. And then, the MPAA with Columbine, they were changing some of the violence up as well. So this was a production that was a bit messy, and the movie is able to call that out. That's really fun to see the meta commentary that is allowed here. We always had Scream talking about the industry. We always had Scream talking about movies, but Scream 3 specifically is really getting into the nitty-gritty of Hollywood. It is, again, making fun of, the actors, the people who are trying to find their roles. The girl who's playing Sydney in this movie fought for her role, and she fought very hard, it seems, to get this role here.
I did not fuck that pig Milton!
then we also have like the black actor who was like, I don't want to leave this because when can I find a gig like this? It's really interesting to see these perspectives and these kind of conversations of Hollywood very early into meta-ness. Like, we are still weirdly in a spot here where Wes Craven is one of the only people referencing the real world, and it's smart to do. And this is kind of way before Joss Whedon made this the status quo in a lot of comedies and a lot of action movies. Wes Craven was really trying to do it, and I think this movie is incredibly smart for it. Does it get weighed down? Yes. The Carrie Fisher stuff, I love the cameo, but it's like, oh, because she looks like her. You know, there's so many little moments that I'm like, I see what you're trying to do, but it definitely takes away from the horror of this. The meta commentary definitely overdoes it. It makes this more of a comedy, more of a satire, which I do love. I think this movie is very funny, but it does slightly take away from what I think could be one of the scarier entries and makes it a bit more of the fun one. With that being said, though, we have a big conclusion here with the movie set. I think one of my favorite things is that moment where Sydney goes to the set and has that moment on the set, you know, flashing back to what was happening early on, you know, quoting lines from her own life, which happens to be in the Stab movies. I love that stuff. I think, again, it's something that Randy says in that little videotape where, you know, this is the big one. You know, the killer is going to be supernatural. This is a big moment. Trilogies are supposed to have this thing. So making it a big Hollywood production with a great final act as well. My goodness, I love the final act in the mansion, in that sleazy mansion with, I'm just thinking of, like, the Weinstein of this all and how much did, like, Wes and the writers, like, pull from what they were hearing in real life. My goodness, like, the people who worked the system, who were trying to get under the Weinstein label, because my goodness, man knew how to produce a movie and get it into front of faces, but were able to play the game. Kevin Smith also did this as well. The Lord of the Rings movies did this. We're able to, like, call out how bad these people were through their movie. Again, that meta-ness. No other movie franchise, no other horror world can ever get as smart, can ever commentate on things like the Weinstein-ness, on, you know, casting couches, on finding your place in this industry. No other franchise can do it like Scream can.
Her own son.
I hate to say it. I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is.
If you are talking about one thing people absolutely do not like in this movie, it's the Ghostface reveal. We're going to do spoilers right here if you've never seen Scream 3, but you're watching this video. We're in defense of, like, we're defending this movie. You should have seen it already. Yeah, Roman Bridger's director.
Roman Bridger, director.
Is the killer. Cool. Look, okay, so tying back to Sydney's mom, good. Long lost stepbrother, bad. Fun final act, though. Fun moment with him and Sydney. Like, there's parts of me that I like Roman being the killer, even though that, you know, they check his pulse. He's dead at that one scene, so how the hell is he able to do it? There's confusion to make this killer work within the logistics of the movie, but outside of thinking of, like, well, he died, blah, 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 what about this, and this, I actually thought he was a fun killer, the director, someone who's trying to make his own movie. That's great. Then you add in the, well, your mom is my mom, she had an affair. We're harping up the mom being a whore stuff again, and I'm like, girl, I know Maureen Prescott was around town, but, like, it just felt so... It felt like they were kicking a person while they were down. Like, she's already been killed. Do we have to then kind of bring up her old past stuff? Like, the stuff with the producer, you know, the Milton stuff is interesting. I do think, you know, that is very a good commentary of, like, how horrible they treated her and then how she had to, like, that trauma led her to have the weird life that she had back at Woodsboro.
This is what trauma looks like.
I get that, but it's just like, oh, Roman's back to doing it. Oh, now we have the footage of it. Oh, well, I actually really did hire Billy and Stu to do it. It's like the retconning makes this reveal less impactful. And Sydney doesn't know who this man is. When he's doing all this, she's like, baby, you're whiny. I hate you. You're a bitch. Let's fight. And I'm like, girl, Sydney, I feel you. Because, like, I get the director side of this killer. But once we get into the family side, it loses me a bit. Like, I do think this is an interesting killer. I like this one more than the one we just had in Scream 6 with the cop and his family. I think this is... Okay, I kind of like Billy's mother being the 1 and 2, but I still think that just felt so like, well, this was kind of what we have options-wise because we kept leaking. I do think Roman felt like the one that they wanted. It felt like there was maybe one more Ghostface missing, as Infamously, all of our Ghostface have always been in pairs or 3 times. This one has one Ghostface. I do think the actress who was playing the Sydney in the movie was long rumored to be another killer. That would have been interesting, but I don't know. I don't know that connection as well. It just furthers the, well, what are we doing with this killer? Like, what does this say? I feel like Sydney, in her list of trauma and her list of PTSD, the Roman stuff, she's like, I'm throwing that out. Boyfriend? Crazy. Boyfriend's mom? Crazy. My own cousin? Crazy. Half-brother that I barely know about who was directing a bad movie? I'm gonna put him low, and I think that's fair. I know that's kind of crazy to be like, Sydney, let's weigh your trauma, but like truly, I'm throwing Roman to the bottom of the trauma, but I don't think he's that bad of a ghost face. Some of the kills are really fun. Some of the voice changing stuff. I know, James A. Janice on Dead Meat hates the voice changing stuff. I think it's fun. I think it's stupid. I think it works. Yeah, this movie definitely has its ups and downs, but you look at Scream 3, you look at the ghost face stuff, you look at the meta commentary, and you look at what it can do for a trilogy, it's not that bad, and it deserves some love. If you can watch any movie from 25 years ago, I highly recommend Scream 3. Well, everyone, that is it for my first 25th anniversary retro review. I'm going to be doing a lot of these throughout the year. I'll give you some spoilers. We have Miss Congeniality, Charlie's Angels, American Psycho. Like, these are movies that were so formative to my love of movies, and I want to bring that here. Look, I talk about stuff that the algorithm likes, that YouTube will promote. Now this is the year that I don't care. If only 4 people watch this video, thank you to you 4 weird weirdos out there. I love you so much. But I truly want to do stuff that I want to talk about, and journeying back to the year 2000, looking at movies that impacted me and made me the film critic, the TV reviewer, the American Horror Story historian that I am. My goodness, it all started 25 years ago with this iconic year of 2000. Thank you guys so much for joining me. What do you think of Scream 3? What do you think of the Scream franchise? When I posted about this, you all seem to really like the Scream franchise because, again, you're my American Horror Story people. We all like to see this meta commentary, this campy good horror times. What did you guys think of Scream? What did you think of Scream 3? Where do you rank it? What's your favorite? What's your least favorite in this franchise? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you do enjoy this. Also, go to my other channel, Flickering Myth. My goodness, I'm talking about the monkey. I interviewed Chris Jericho. There is so much happening over at Flickering Myth, so make sure you guys subscribe there. And thank you guys so much for joining. Comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And let's talk about Scream 3 right down below.